Hello guys, and welcome to a new video where we will talk about the measurements of triangles. So as you can see here, theoretically we have two triangle patterns, contracting triangle and expanded triangle pattern. Each one of these triangles has its own characteristics and rules. We talked about the rules, and today we are talking about the measurements. So first, let's start with the contracting triangle pattern. In this common shape of triangles, we see that wave B usually takes the price to the zone that represents 61.8 and 78.2 of wave B, or of the previous wave in general, because wave C does retrace to the same zone, and D to the same zone, E the same zone. So we can say the waves A, B, C, D, E, each wave of which retraces ideally to the area that is represented by 61.8 and 78.6 from its previous wave. Just wave A, which doesn't have to retrace to that area from the previous wave, whether it is wave 3 or wave A or anything like that, can just go to 10%. But when we talk about wave B and C and D and E, these waves usually retrace to at least to the area between 61.8 and 78.6 from its previous wave. So this is the ideal retracement. What is the minimum retracement? The minimum retracement, guys, is the level that represents 38.2 from the previous wave. B usually retraces to at least 38.2 from the previous wave, which is wave A. C the same thing, D the same thing, E the same thing. So we gotta see at least a retracement to the level that represents 38.2 from the previous wave to say that this wave is qualified to represent one of the subwaves of the triangle pattern. Alright, is there any another condition? Yes, two of the waves B, C, D, E has to retrace to at least the level that represents 61.8 from the previous wave. Alright, so if we see a triangle pattern with subwaves that respect these measurements, we can say that it is qualified to represent a contracting triangle pattern. Now let's talk about the expanded form. The expanded form, as you can see, we have also 5 waves, but they are different. They expand. You see wave B bigger than A, C bigger than B, D bigger than C, E bigger than D. So according to the guidelines of measurements with the expanded version of triangles, the waves B, C, D, E retrace between 100 and 150% from their previous waves. I guess this is enough talking theoretically, and it's the time to talk about these patterns practically. So first we will talk about the contracting version of triangles, and then we see an example for the expanded form or expanded version of triangles. So here with the contracting form of triangles, we have a good example with wave 4 of an impulsive wave. As you can see here, we have a contracting form of triangles A, B, C, D, E, in which we saw each wave of these subwaves retrace it to the area that is represented by 61.8 and 78.6 levels. B got to this area, C the same thing, D pretty much the same thing, just exceeded this area slightly. Wave E also got to this area between 61.8 and 78.6. So as you can see, when we see an example of contracting triangles that respects these measurements, usually the price follows our expectations. I can give you more examples whether now or later, especially when we get the opportunity to see another triangle pattern, and we will, because this pattern is pretty common. We will see how usually the subwaves of this triangle pattern respect these measurements. So here we have all of those conditions that we spoke about. All of these subwaves retraced more than 38.2, and there are at least 2 of these waves got to the level that represents 61.8, and even all of them got to the perfect retracement zone, which is the zone between 61.8 and 78.6% retracement from the length of their previous wave. Now let's talk about the expanded version of triangles, where we see 5 subwaves. Each one of them retrace it to the zone that represents 150% from their previous waves. Each wave is bigger than the previous wave. A, B, C, DE. So these subwaves are expanding instead of contracting like the example that we saw before. This kind of triangles is less common than the contracting version. But anyway, I gotta talk about the measurements in this course of each kind of these triangles. So now you got the information about the measurements of the expanded form and the contracting form. So next time when you see a triangle pattern, you will know what kind of triangle is in front of you and whether or not it is qualified to represent a triangle pattern according to the measurements of its subwaves. So that is it, guys, for today's lesson. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments section. Hopefully you enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you soon.